and Houston attorney Carmen Rowe. In the 3 spot, super neighborhood leader Tamara Bell. Batting cleanup, businessman and columnist Bill King. And closing us out, associate editor of Breitbart, Texas, Bob Price. Let's begin. Will a cure for COVID-19 actually be ready for mass distribution in a matter of weeks? The CDC is telling all 50 states to make preparations to distribute a vaccine to high-risk patients and healthcare workers as soon as late October. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, is on the record this week confirming that a vaccine may be available before the completion of clinical trials. Critical questions. Given that an election hangs in the balance, could the Trump administration be rushing the process for political gain? And how much risk is acceptable if scientists give an early green light to the vaccine? Let's start with our COVID-19 scholar, Bill King. What's your take?
Well, I'm sure there's some political aspects to it, but let me tell you what, they need to get the vaccine out as fast as they want to. Let me explain what the phase 3 trials are for a second, because I think this is really important to understand, because there's not a lot of risk. They've already been through phase 1, which you give it to animals and then you try to give them the disease. Phase 2, you've given it to several hundred people. Phase 3 is you take about 20,000 people, you give 10,000 the vaccine, and you give 10,000 the placebo, and then you send them out into the community to see which ones of that group get sick. This is not about proving safety. This is about proving efficacy. And if they get some early readout, if there's some big differences between the vaccine group and the placebo group, then they need to get that vaccine out as soon as they can. Because let me explain something to you. Every day that vaccine is not out, somebody's going to get sick that's going to die. And every day you delay it, you are condemning somebody to that fate.
Okay, Tamara Bell, that's a pretty powerful bottom line. How do you see this?
I do believe that they're rushing it, and I do believe that that is possibly to do with politics. But I've talked to several, including my neighbor who's in healthcare. I even know a guy who works for Merck, and he was talking about how they go through stuff, because even though you get it out there and you may see these results, you don't know in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, oh God, it makes you grow another ear. It makes you turn green. I mean, they don't know. So I know I've heard more people, even people who've had it, say they're not going to be on the guinea pig first round.
Okay, hanging curveball for you, Bob Price. Are we not giving the Trump administration enough credit for getting this vaccine out sooner rather than later?
Well, he's not going to get credit either way. If he was dragging it out, doing more and more and more due diligence, they'd say he's inept and he can't manage the process and he can't get it out quick enough to save people's lives. So he's going to get condemned for it either way. The issue is they've been saying for months that a vaccine is coming and it's coming quickly. The Trump administration has mobilized the private sector and the government sector together in this, not only to get this vaccine out, but to get PPE equipment out as it was needed early get ventilators manufactured so that nobody in this country went without a ventilator. It's his policies of stopping people from coming into this country who might have the COVID, either whether it coming from China, from Europe, or across our southern border, that is kept those numbers down as low as they are. They're unacceptably high. They're the worst in the world in terms of that. But imagine where they would be if this administration had not done the things early on that they did.
Janice Evans, do you smell politics here, or is getting the vaccine out as soon as possible the right idea, even if it's not through with the normal testing process?
What's Joe Biden saying? Come on, man. I think he's probably saying that right now. It would be great if they could get the vaccine out just as quick as possible, but the election is 60 days away. And to get everything mobilized and ready to actually start inoculating people, I don't see it happening. You might have a few thousand doses that get out, but everybody's going to want that thing, and he's going to set himself up for some more troubles if he releases it and then people don't have access to it. So this is very important. It's got to be done right.
Okay, Carmen Rowe, is the president just selling advance hope here in order to try to get a political bump, or do you think this is real? Fauci has a lot of credibility. He wouldn't confirm this unless it was true.
I mean, I think that's the most important thing. Politics aside, everybody wants to trust Fauci. Well, he's behind this. The FDA needs to approve it, and it's being signed off on by a number of experts that are outside of the government. There's some concern that it's political, but to me, the cutting through of all the red tape is what the RNC put out there as a message that the Republicans were doing, that Trump was doing. So to me, it's like they've already got everybody either believing they've done that all along and this would be great, or that they've taken care of COVID the way that it needed to be taken care of. So this could be a bump to his political campaign, but I don't think it's going to change anything as far as the numbers as we move forward, except to increase them if this works out.
Okay, Bill King, you heard the panel. You've got 45 seconds to complete this topic. What else can you tell us?
So what the FDA did, it told the states to get ready to distribute the first round of vaccines. Those are going to go to healthcare workers primarily. They're going to go to people that work in nursing homes. They might go to nursing home patients if the trials show that it helps that particular age cohort. So what this was say, get ready for this first round. It's not going to be generally available to the public in November, probably not until sometime next year. But it is really important that we get this protection to the people that are having to go and deal with this disease every single day. It's the right thing to do.
Okay. Up next, a new game plan for reforming Houston police. Does a sweeping proposal by 5 council members have any chance of becoming permanent policy? Welcome back. Released this week in response to the outcry for social justice, a full slate of police reform recommendations authored by 5 members of Houston City Council, all of whom are Black. Among the 25 proposals, welcome back. The 2 men vying to lead our nation for the next 4 years both traveled this week to strife-ridden Kenosha, Wisconsin. President Donald Trump used his visit to denounce so-called racial justice protests he described as violent, destructive, and an ongoing threat to law and order.
To stop the political violence, we must also confront the radical ideology that includes this violence. Reckless, far-left politicians continue to push the destructive message that our nation and our law enforcement are oppressive or racist. They'll throw out any word that comes to them.
Mr. Trump has also refused to denounce the 17-year-old self-styled militiaman who shot and killed 2 protesters. Meantime, during his trip, Democrat Joe Biden spoke with Jacob Blake, the suspect shot 4 times by Kenosha police, the incident which triggered the unrest.
We're going to address the original sin of this country. 400 years old. It's the original sin, slavery, and all the vestiges of it. I can't guarantee you everything gets solved in 4 years, but I guarantee you one thing, it'll be a whole heck of a lot better.
At a community meeting, the former vice president optimistically pronounced fear doesn't solve problems, hope does. Okay, Tamara Bell, you saw both of these presidential contenders on the ground in Kenosha, Wisconsin. What was your takeaway?
What one would hope when the federal government is coming is that, number one, that they are wanted there and that they're coming there to bring some kind of solution or some peace. I didn't see that. Biden came, he talked to the gentleman who all this was around, and he got to speak to him. I'm sure that was comforting for him, as well as their family. President Trump came, he wanted to talk to someone whose business had been damaged. They did not want to talk to him, so he goes and finds a person who used to own the business and talk to them. That's a photo op. I'm sure that for some people, it's coming, they felt that that's what he needed. But the narrative that he's given about the protesters and what he said about those same protesters, same protesting that occurred without so much of the explosion in other states, he didn't say that. He said it was good people. He said it were good people. So I think that's the problem. What is your message behind this? What are you trying to get across?
Okay, Bill King, here on Labor Day weekend, 2 narratives are emerging from the different camps. Law and order on one side, social justice, and as Biden said, addressing America's original sin, slavery, on the other. What's your view?
Well, I thought you saw the two narratives fully on display in these visits to Wisconsin. You know, Trump being the tough law and order guy, and Biden presenting the empathetic, you know, Bill Clinton, I feel your pain sort of. The problem is Biden's not Bill Clinton. And I don't know, if you look at the polls, it's closing right now. And it looks like to me this whole issue about the violence and the riots and what's been going on in Portland, I think it's starting to hurt Biden. And I think they've got to figure out how to get control of that narrative, or I suspect the race is going to close more.
Okay, Janice, that's a good point. I mean, does Joe Biden have to assure America that he's not going to stand for anarchy and make that statement pretty strongly?
I think we did see him condemn the protests and the violence that has occurred along with them. What we saw from the president, though, was inciting of more violence.
Yep.
That's not what we need either. This was a tale of two men. You saw one who came not wearing his mask, not showing respect for everybody else that is wearing their mask, another who is wearing his mask and wears it at every place that he goes. Trump cannot stand there and say, we're not safe, when he's the one who's been in the White House for the last 4 years. That's
right.
where the blame lies right now, and that's not what we need.
Bob Price, does the law and order narrative work for Trump down the stretch? Is it enough?
Well, let's be clear. There's a long history of the Obama-Biden administration of rushing to judgment in these police officer-involved shootings, condemning police officers before the facts are in. And Joe Biden did it again in this case, calling for these officers to be charged before he knows what the heck is going on there. So, you know, it's ridiculous that they do. Let's be clear about who this gentleman is. This is a accused sex offender who's in violation of a protective order, who wrestled the police officers down to the ground and put one of them in a headlock, and then jumped into his car to get a knife. And in contrast to what was said a couple of weeks ago on this show, a knife is a deadly weapon in close quarters and contact, because a police officer's vest won't stop a knife, it will stop a bullet. So, you know, let's not be rushing to judgment here, Joe Biden. I'm glad you finally got out of the basement and came out to see what real life is going on around, see the cities that have been burning in this country while you've been sitting in your basement. But I'm sorry, this has got to stop.
Okay, Carmen, I'm going to take advantage of your expertise, because I wanted to ask about the 17-year-old and the criminal charges he now faces. The president and others defended his actions this week, or at least didn't condemn them, suggesting that he was just defending himself and he had a right to.
Well, I mean, look, we talked about training. I'm going to talk about it again. This is a 17-year-old boy with, you know, a weapon that I doubt he knows how to use. I mean, this is a situation that's a systemic problem where you have, you know, anarchy, as you said, and individuals who are out there, you know, shooting under circumstances where I promise you they don't understand the law of self-defense or use of force. It's complicated enough that law enforcement officers, professionals trained, don't understand it. So, you know, I think this young man's in a bad situation, but I think politically, this is going to be what this campaign and this election is going to be about. It's not going to be about COVID anymore. It's going to be about safety on the streets, people who are unlicensed carrying guns, who are 17-year-olds, and then law enforcement officers that are shooting people on the streets, and whether or not that's justified. Very complicated things legally that are turning into social and political issues.
Gonna leave it there. Still to come, Facebook says it won't delete campaign lies and misinformation, but will limit new ads in the final critical days before the election. Here's a curious development. Facebook says it will not run any new political ads during the final week before the November 3rd election, citing the inability of media vetters to identify lies and misinformation in time to adequately alert voters. On the flip side, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the social media company would not remove ads containing lies and misinformation, arguing the best antidote for bad speech is more speech. Okay, I'm going to go straight to Carmen Rowe on this. What do you make of Facebook's position?
You know, don't ever underestimate the power of social media. I mean, Zuckerberg in last election, we all know that social media played a significant role, but it was silent and nobody seemed to be paying attention to it. Well, then he says he doesn't want to get involved in it. And so he's just putting it all out there. Then he starts censoring it. And now here we are with them letting us know just how influential his social media really is when it comes to politics. So, you know, I think this is about a money grab for him. I think it's all about Facebook having time in the political arena. And I think it continues to be a problem until we get some regulation on people who are doing whatever they want in social media.
Janice, what's your read?
Well, I say good for Facebook, bad for Facebook. I think it's good that they're not going to be taking on any sort of attack ads in the final week before the election. I think it's bad, though, that they're not taking the extra step and taking down ads that are already there. This is standard operating procedure, used to be, I don't know if it still is, but used to be standard operating procedure in journalism outlets. You stopped running any sort of story that was negative or an attack a few days prior to the election and shifted all your focus to get out the vote and informing voters of the information that they needed to go to the polls. So I don't see a problem with that. I have a bigger problem with what the president is doing right now before the FCC in trying to rein in the social media platforms and curtail their checking of his accuracy. We all need to do our homework and decide what is the best candidate for us to support when we get to the polls. But at the same time, I think a little help is warranted.
Okay, Bob Price, what's your read on what Facebook is doing?
Well, I'm not sure how much impact it's going to have, but most people are, probably 60% of the people are going to vote early voting. And a lot of that voting will be done long before this comes into play any kind of role or impact. But, it's just typical of these social media companies. They're trying to do everything they can to suppress free speech that they don't agree with. It's one thing if you agree with them. I wouldn't be surprised to see all kinds of ads come up that they agree with. But the issue is that they have been actively suppressing for a long time conservative voices in the media.
Tamara Bell, final 30 seconds goes to you.
I don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram. I don't do none of that crap. And this is the reason why right here. Because all he care about is MONEY. If you looking for him to be any kind of social consciousness for anything other than the need for greed, you are looking at the wrong person.
Leaving it there. A 6-time convicted felon accused of murder, cut loose by a local reform judge. We tackle the question, is public safety in Harris County rapidly eroding? Welcome back. More controversy as violent repeat offenders continue to exit the revolving door down at the Harris County Jail. This week, veteran Fox 26 reporter Randy Wallace laid out the release of Vernon Menifee, a 24-year-old Houstonian who's already racked up 6 felony convictions, ranging from burglary to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. This April, while out on bond awaiting trial on 3 more felonies, Menifee allegedly committed a murder. But instead of keeping a convicted predator behind bars, Judge Brian Warren gave Menifee another chance, setting bond at $150,000, a chance at freedom this alleged killer has taken. He's out here, folks, on the streets. Bill King, what do you make of this?
By the way, they issued an arrest warrant for him today for yet another burglary that he committed while he was out on bond. I don't understand what's going on down there. And look, this judge wants us to reelect him. And by the way, kudos to Randy for uncovering a great story here. He asked the judge, can you explain to us why you would give this individual bond? Oh, well, I can't talk about it. Well, I'm sorry. You're asking us to elect you as a judge. You need to back up why you're making these kind of decisions, because otherwise we need to vote for somebody else. But here's the really important thing. People should not conflate this with misdemeanor bond reform, okay? Misdemeanor bond reform is something that needed to happen. It's needed to happen for a long time. I'm 100% in favor of that. These are felony courts. These are individuals that have long criminal histories that are being given bond. These are not PR bonds. These are cash bonds, but still they're being set low enough that these guys can get out. And I just don't understand why these judges keep doing it. This particular court, there's been 5 people out on bond that have committed a murder.
Wow, Carmen Rowe, what's going on here? Is it, do criminals understand that they're probably going to get bond, even if they have a long rap sheet?
Look, there is such a thing as felony bond reform, and it's just as important as misdemeanor bond reform. But this case is definitely an anomaly. I mean, first of all, we have the COVID, so nobody wants people in custody. This gentleman has 6 prior felonies, 5 pending felonies, and as Bill pointed out, an active warrant. But let me say this about that. The lowest bond that was ever set for this guy was $75,000. He had $100,000 and $150,000 bonds on every other case. So it's not like Judge Warren went out there and set a $5,000 bond for him. They were high, serious bonds that reflected the high, serious nature of these crimes. That said, he also could have no bonded him at any time once he was committed a felony and then picked up another felony while he was on bond. The fact that he chose not to do that was the second chance that he was giving him. And so the bond reform with these felony court judges is very real, and it's going a little too far, certainly in this case.
Okay, Tamara Bell, if I'm facing a murder charge with 6 felonies on my in my past, I'm coming up with 15 grand and getting out of jail. I mean, is there concern in the neighborhoods that folks who are predators and who have committed violent crime in the past are getting out too easily?
And this wasn't second chance. As you said, he already committed 6 felonies. He should have been done. I mean, I'm not a baseball fan, but hell, 3 strikes, 6 strikes, come on now. And the thing about it is this judge, he just got elected in 2019. I've been told that there is pressure being put on these judges by a commissioner at Harris County who is forcing them for what was meant for misdemeanor court to be taken into felony court. And the problem is that when these people get out, they come right back to the neighborhoods that they came from. So who are they killing? Who are they robbing? Most of the time, it is minorities. It is minorities. And I mean, this needs to be addressed. I am beyond sick of it. And what is happening with the children? I mean, the Malia Davis case, that still hasn't been resolved. You got another Malia, and then what, this man raping his 9-month-old? Come on. Something has got to go.
Bob Price, you get an opportunity to say, I told you so.
Well, it's bigger than that. This started a couple of years ago in Maryland and in Massachusetts and New York, where they started putting these ridiculous bonds on violent felons, and all of a sudden the crime rate started going up. It's just more lawlessness in these Democrat-controlled courts, Democrat-controlled cities. And tomorrow, you're exactly right. Who's the victim in all this? It's the people in these minority communities that they go back into, and they destroy the lives that they destroy because the Democrats that these people are electing to govern will not govern and will not follow the law. The Democrat district attorney in Portland, Oregon has released 24 violent rioters and had them rearrested again because they won't press charges against these people. So finally, the federal government is coming in and enacting some organized crime statutes to put federal charges on these people and put them in jail.
We're going to have to leave it there. Still to come, we discussed the beauty salon surveillance video that had Republicans ripping House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Welcome back. Sparking cries of hypocrisy, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was captured on surveillance video emerging from a California salon in clear violation of state restrictions on indoor styling services. The White House quickly pounced on the opportunity, labeling the speaker, "Do as I say, not as I do," Nancy Pelosi. Declining to apologize, the speaker claims she was set up and should have recognized the trap before stepping into it. Okay, Janice, I've seen you do some serious damage control. What's your take on this?
All I've got to say is, Nancy, you're being a Karen right now, and that's not what we need. Bob, you'll like my answer on this. She said she didn't have her mask on because she was getting her hair washed. I've been to the hair salon a couple times since the restrictions were relaxed in Texas, and I've had my mask on the entire time. So has the man who's doing my hair. She needs to stand up, fess up, and fix it. That's the only way to make this go away. And instead, she's got women angry at her, and she's given the she's given the Republicans a diversion for right now. It needs to go away.
Carmen, what would your advice be to the House Speaker?
Personal responsibility. She thinks that the hairdresser owes her an apology. I mean, this whole conspiracy theory with a setup and her house person, and you know, she had to go out and then they were all, you know, filming and whatever. My goodness, my goodness. I think it takes away from so much of the credibility that some people think she had before. I think it's gone now. And so I hope her hair was worth it, and that she thinks that, you know, going out and getting her hair done is worth putting her credibility on the line, because I think that's really what it's costing her.
Okay, our third lady on the panel, Tamara Bell. What's your take?
Look, if lying took your credibility, we wouldn't be listening from a damn thing out the White House. She done told a lie. She need to say, whoops, you know what? I just really want to get my hair done right now. Baby, I get it. I know the mood. I understand. And let it go. Probably had a little more gray hair than she wanted to say. Let it go. But let's be clear. If lying took credibility, hell, we wouldn't even have a White House press conference.
Okay, Bob, I guess Louis Gohmert probably had a little schadenfreude this week.
Well, you know, it's kind of a fun topic, but the reality is her policies and not getting things passed through Congress are hurting businesses like this hair salon. And so if she was set up, which I don't think she was, but I think she earned it. So, you know, let's get Congress back to work and quit worrying about haircuts and get some bills passed out of the House and the Senate and signed by the president so that we can get some relief out to people that need it.
Okay, Bill King, the student of human nature. What's your take?
I'm just sort of amazed how this mask thing has taken a life of its own. It's become a new tribal identification. I mean, if you're a Democrat, you wear one to bed at night. And if you're a Republican, you never wear one. It just seems like it's the silliest thing I've ever seen.
I wear mine everywhere I go.
All right, all right. We're going to leave it there. When we come back, that just-built private border wall appears to be in danger of falling apart. Welcome back. Reports this week that the privately funded Texas barrier its builders once described as the Lamborghini of border walls is in imminent danger of collapse due to erosion. The engineering critique of the 3-mile fence funded by the controversial group We Build the Wall emerged in litigation. Of serious note, the North Dakota company that built the private wall has, according to the Texas Tribune, received $2 billion in contracts to construct segments of the taxpayer-funded wall ordered by President Trump. I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Tamara Bell. What do you make of this news?
I wonder if they were using unskilled workers to do this. It's just so funny because I heard about this, and I heard that this is the contract is part that Bannon was getting back from. And you want to talk about corruption, and now they're getting another contract to build another rock wall made out of pixie sticks, but on the government's tax break.
Bill King, when you read this up, what was your reaction?
I wish they'd spend the money building a wall between us and the next storm surge instead of us in Mexico.
I know that's right.
All right, Janice, does this surprise you?
No, this doesn't surprise me. My daughter drives a Yaris. It's not a Lamborghini, I can tell you that. There's a big difference between the two of them. And if we're comparing this wall to a Yaris, then yeah, we've got some problems. But I see this as just more of the same. We were told years ago that Mexico was going to pay for this wall. They didn't. We were told years ago this wall would be done by now, and it's not. And now we're being told that they're going to give contracts to the same people that have built this part of the wall that's going to fall down. It's just more of the same, more problems, and an indication that we need change in Washington.
Bob, we haven't heard from the president as much about we're going to build the wall, we're going to finish the wall. Is it still a very strong issue with his base?
Well, absolutely. I was in a conference call earlier today with CBP Commissioner Mark Morgan, and they've actually completed 260 miles of wall. They've got another 120 miles that's about to finish. They'll have 450 miles completed before the end of the year. And there would have been a lot more if the Democrats hadn't dragged their heels. Democrats who were always in favor of building a wall up until Trump got elected. And now all of a sudden they put all these obstacles in the way. So the president had to find ways to get it done by taking money from the Department of Defense and putting it into building walls. Let's be clear, this wall that they're talking about down in South Texas is not anything like what president and the Customs and Border Protection is building along the southwest border. This was right on the river. Who's going to build something right on a river? Rivers move, rivers shift, rivers change. That's just asinine. They were just, I'm not going to go into why or what, but it's also not the specs. The contracts that are being given to this company to build walls will be built to CBP specifications, just like every other piece of wall that's been built along the southwest border. These are outstanding jobs, and they're doing the job of protecting this country, forcing drug dealers to take different routes with their drugs. And consequently, we've seized a record amount of methamphetamine this year. We've stopped the flow of illegal immigrants coming into this country because of the policies put in place by this president, and it's doing a good job and will continue to do a good job.
Final word to Carmen Rowe, 30 seconds.
You know, I think this is an embarrassment at this point. I mean, we have people under federal indictment regarding misappropriation of the funds that are used for this wall. And then I don't know if they're out, you know, necessarily under skilled workers, but they're certainly from out of town that they don't understand how things work here in Texas and along the border that they would build something like that. So this isn't a Lamborghini. It's not a Yaris. I think it's a Pinto.
Gonna leave it there. Up next, the battle to represent Texas 7 in Congress. We talk one-on-one with Republican challenger Wesley Hunt. Welcome back. Wesley Hunt is a husband, a father, a West Point-trained Army chopper pilot who survived a slew of combat missions fighting for his country. He is also a veteran of the Texas oil patch and a Republican candidate looking to capture Democrat Lizzie Fletcher's seat representing Houston's West Side. We spoke one-on-one about what he hopes to bring to the table for CD7. My first and essential question is, why do you want this job?
Those of us that are willing to risk our lives for this country understand what it means to have real skin in the game. And I think we need more of that message in Washington, and that's why I'm running.
CD7 politically is probably a moderate place. Your opponent has portrayed herself as a moderate and voiced support for Texas energy. Does her record match her performance?
It's the idea of bringing the values of Congressional District 7 here in Houston to D.C. and not the other way around. As we now know, Lizzie Fletcher has voted with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. And despite the fact of her running as a moderate, that's very dangerous to us here in Houston, particularly as it pertains to the oil and gas industry. Houston is the energy capital of the world, and this district encompasses basically the entire energy corridor, making this the energy district of the world, in my opinion. And we have got to have a voice for our industry that currently is under attack.
So you don't believe she's a fierce enough advocate for the energy industry in her first term?
Absolutely not. And my time in the military, you know, flew 55 combat air missions in Baghdad, 8 years in the Army, 4 years at West Point, 2 years in Saudi Arabia as a diplomatic liaison officer. I understand what leadership means. And there are times to be silent and lead from the back. There are times to be in the middle of the pack, and there are times to be vocal and lead from the front. And as we are seeing in this world, silent leadership from the back is not what we need in this country.
Are you supporting this president strongly?
I support the policies of President Trump. We need to get infrastructure fixed here. We need to get flooding fixed here. And I would much rather work with President Trump or any president to get that done. That's beneficial for us. And so it's up to me to focus on the mission. This is what I'm asking for the people of CD7 to look at me and say, this guy's mission first. This guy understands what needs to be done, and he's going to do it for us.
Wesley Hunt, Kenosha has come to represent the battle over law and order in this country within the context of trying to improve racial equality. What is your take as you watch this unfold?
We're Americans first. As diverse as we are, let's focus on that, and then we can hash out our differences later. Look, as a Black man in this country, I understand exactly what it means to be disenfranchised from time to time, but that doesn't mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's grow on our past. Let's improve ourselves for the future. So we don't need fewer police. We need more police. We also need to make sure that we train these police officers better. And I don't think anybody's going to argue with you on that. but we have got to have their backs. We have to support them because they are the ones that are putting their life on the line for us every single day. And my wife, who sits at home with my child, she wants to feel safe. And right now, she is concerned. And that's unacceptable considering that the number one responsibility for the federal government is to keep us safe.
What is the bottom line in this race?
My 14 West Point classmates didn't die for a Black person. They didn't die for a white person, and they didn't die for an Asian person, etc. They died for Americans. Let's honor their lives. Let's honor their sacrifice by continuing to serve for them, since they are no longer here to serve for themselves. And that's what I want the people of CD7 to know.
Next week on this program, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher makes her case for re-election. Still ahead, with less than 2 months to Election Day, we take a look at the numbers, so don't go away. Welcome back. The Labor Day holiday has traditionally marked the beginning of the stretch run ahead of the November general election. We Americans now have just 57 days to make our decision. Until then, the candidates and campaigns will be closely gauging voter sentiment with a tool known as the public opinion poll. In the race for the White House, the Real Clear Politics average has Democrat Joe Biden leading the president by a 7-point margin, 49-42. While 2016 taught everyone that pollsters can be off target or even flat wrong, these snapshots are accurate enough that they drive political messaging and thus warrant our attention. That's all our time. Thanks for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next with Fox News Sunday. From all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.